Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Illustrated Media Podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Traina. Thank you for listening. Big show this week, so I'm going to do a very quick intro. We have Steve Levy, voice of Monday Night Football, also doing NHL for ESPN at the top, followed by Jeff Garlin on the upcoming season of Curb, and we get into heavy-duty Curb talk, and then Trainer Thoughts with Sal Licata, all on this episode. If you missed last week, we had John Oran and Alan Sepinwall on the podcast. 2 weeks ago, Kyle Brandt. 3 weeks ago, Stephen A. Smith. Brian Danielson from AEW, and Jimmy Kimmel, all recent guests as well. So check those out in the archives. Subscribe, rate, and review. All right, let's hit it now with this show. Steve Levy, Jeff Garlin, Trainer Thoughts right here on the SI Media Podcast. All right, joining me now, very, very busy individual at ESPN. Two big gigs, Monday Night Football, and now with the NHL returning to ESPN. Studio and play-by-play, Steve Levy. Steve, how are you?
Alas, we meet, Jimmy. It's been a long time coming. How are you?
I'm well. I'm doing well. How are you? You're very busy these days.
All good. It's the best kind of busy, you know?
Good to hear you're good with Peyton and Eli returning this Monday. I thought maybe it'd be
what?
a little...
What?
Yeah, did you hear about that? Have you heard about this alternate telecast?
What's going on with that? Wait, we're showing
crazy.
The same game on multiple channels. What an idea.
It's unbelievable. There's this other telecast that goes right head to head with you.
Yeah, I missed them the last 3 weeks. and the social media chatter that follows. I miss all that.
I mean, listen, I can't even believe some of the things I've read. You know, I mean, listen, I understand that the average typical sports TV viewer is not going to understand the ins and outs of the business. But for people to say like that's going to replace all traditional broadcasts and, you know, no one paying attention to the fact that your telecast is getting 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 million viewers and they're getting 1 million, but sure, that'll replace the traditional telecast. It is amazing. It is amazing that it seems to have worked out for everyone, though.
Yes, and it could be a sign of the future if you could get Peyton and Eli on other sports, right? But I'm not sure those guys exist. They're obviously,
right.
Look, first family of football, the Mannings. They're special, and what they have is good, and I get it. And listen, I've seen a lot of clips, and if our game is, if the game's not a great game and it's a blowout in the third quarter, I'd certainly understand that. And even in a good game, I want to hear what Peyton and Eli have to say as well. So we've just been very lucky. Our games have been unbelievably good so far this season.
Yeah, not all, but most of the primetime games have been great. Monday nights you had a great one this Monday. You and Louis Riddick and Brian Greasy are probably the three people in the sports world who have not been able to check out Peyton and Eli because you're a little busy at the same time. But you said you saw clips, I assume just Twitter stuff, or have you gone back and actually watched one of their telecasts?
You know what? I watched. It was week 1 or week 2. I DVR'd it. Hey, I DVR'd our games, but I did want to see what the fuss was all about, you know? And I get it. Listen, you can't fake chemistry, as you know. And that's something Brian, Lewis, and I have, worked on in our second year in the booth together, and we're still getting there. And, Peyton and Eli have been together their entire lives, like every second of it. So you can't fake that stuff. You can't substitute it. So they obviously have that. They were obviously all-time great players. And, oh, by the way, they're funny and entertaining, too. Like, again, I get it. People want to pit us against each other. Right. And I don't see that. I'm looking at the health of the franchise, that is Monday Night Football. And ratings are up, apparently. I don't really get into the numbers game, but more people are watching. And if that's because of Peyton and Eli, I'm all for that. Let's get Monday Night Football back to where it was, regardless of how many channels it's being seen on.
What was your reaction, though, when you first heard they were doing this alternate telecast? Because here you guys are, second year in the booth. Like you said, trying to build in that chemistry. The booth had a rocky couple of years there. You guys came in, stabilized it last year, and now you hear they're doing an alternate telecast. Where you're like, what's up with that? Or were you like, oh, I totally get it from a business standpoint?
It's a curiosity piece too, right? I do get it from the business. I've been in the business a long time, and I've been sort of on the other side. I've been on those mega casts for other sports. I've done the college football national championship, on ESPN2, running around like a lunatic, me and Pat McAfee on one sideline, and Dan Orlovsky on the other. And those have been a lot of fun, and I think they're well received. And listen, we all fall under the ESPN umbrella. And my understanding is that the network doesn't care which channel you're watching as long as it's one of our channels. And listen, I don't know how many broadcasts we're going to have for the wild card game on Monday night, but I think for college, I felt like we had maybe six different opportunities, different ways to watch. So there's the natural curiosity factor. I was curious, but they don't have a play-by-play guy, right? So I wasn't really impacted. I certainly could understand if Brian and Lewis felt differently, but I think it's really cool to hear the different opinions in the moment, right? Not the next day, but in the moment. Hey, what did Greasy say on this play? What did Peyton say on this same play? Decision, go for it, don't go for it, pass or run. So I think that's cool. I think that's fun. And again, we're all playing for the same team, So I really do. I think it's a win. And I'd be surprised if it changed. I know it's a 3-year deal for those guys, but if they're having a good time, the audience is clearly having fun watching them, why not keep it going?
Yeah, the problem in sports TV, it seems like, is when there's something good going, higher ups try to get involved and then they change it and then they mess it up. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But that's
I think, listen, our guys take a lot of heat, right? Our suits. I feel like they nailed this one.
Yeah,
they're entitled to the pat on the back since they get the criticism when stuff doesn't work. Well, here's something that's obviously working, and I think you will see other places try and copy it. And the question is, you got somebody like Peyton and Eli. Those guys, they don't come around too often.
I think I wrote that actually in one of the columns I wrote about the Peyton and Eli show. I said the biggest negative is that every network in sport will try to copy this, and it's going to be a disaster because they just don't have Peyton and Eli. So,
right.
And tell me about you and Brian and Lewis' second year. What's the big difference year 2 as opposed to year 1? Obviously, besides having Peyton and hearing about Peyton and Eli, do you feel more comfortable? Do you feel like we talked about chemistry? Obviously, that's so important. What are your thoughts so far? 6 weeks into year 2 on Monday Night Football.
Well, the biggest change for the broadcast is having a live crowd. That is number one. To come off the music and see 80,000 rocking or whatever it is, and the tailgate scene and all that. That is by far the biggest change. I really don't want to be the coach speak guy, but I do feel like we're trying to get better every week. And I thought you hit on a key phrase about last season. We were really trying to stabilize things, right? And get the attention on the field where it belongs. I mean, there's been so much talk about the booth. We're just the announcers, you know what I mean? And it's the game on the field. So I feel like we did that. And so after year 1, in what was a crazy year 1, right? We go through the pandemic, the heart of the pandemic. And so now it's a matter of, okay, season 2, let's try to be really good at this, right? All right, so there's stabilizing. Now let's get really good with the idea, hey, one day maybe we could all be great at this together. And so I think we're still getting better every week. I knew we would be instantly better week 1 of this season than even our wild card game of a season ago, which I thought we were pretty good in. We had a couple preseason games this year, got to play around, got to fool around, got to hang out a little bit this off season. And I think you see, we're laughing more, and they're genuine laughs. They're genuine yucks. They're not orchestrated. And, I've always believed that if you're having a good time, the audience will have a good time as well with you. And again, like I said, the biggest thing, the games have been great. The games have just been great. And we walk into some of these, Jimmy, we're like, this could be a 3-touchdown kind of blowout. Right. And we haven't had that. We've been really lucky. So
started week 1 with the Raiders and the Ravens. No one thought, that would be close. I remember.
Overtime games already, we've had.
Yeah.
It's been a ton of overtime in the whole league. It's been great.
Yeah. For you personally, and I don't mean this specifically to Riddick and Greasy, just overall. Obviously, you've worked with Greasy doing college for a while. And then they go to a 3-man booth. For you as a play-by-play guy, forget who the 2 analysts are. Is 3-man booth a bigger challenge, tougher to navigate than 2? What's your preference on that?
So I think it's counterintuitive. You would think it would be easier with 3 in the booth. There's obviously less time for me to say anything. So I have to really be careful about what I do say. I really have to pick my spots. If I'm going to try to get in there, and listen, Brian and Lewis, they're bright to begin with, but I really think they have super high football IQs. So if I'm going to eat up some of their clock, it's got to be really good. And so that's the challenging part for me, is to not just, weave in and out with, mindless kind of stuff. If I'm going to go, I really have to go and bring my best and bring my fastball. So that's kind of the challenge. And last year, going back to last year, it was easier last year because there was no crowd. There was no opportunity to lay out. There was much more time to speak. So now with the crowd, it's almost like a 4-man booth, right? And Jimmy, this is a true story. We just got off our Zoom every Wednesday. Our core group, we meet on a Zoom and to discuss the game that just was. And Thursday, we spin it ahead to the next game. But we talked about it. We all take notes, watch the game back. There was a first down run for 3 yards in the second quarter. And I finished the call, and it was a nothing run, and nobody said anything. Not one word. No replay, not a word from Greasy, not a word from Riddick. And for a second there, it sounds wrong. It sounds awkward. It might have been 25 seconds. Play clock.
I actually remember that. I'm not bullshitting you. I actually remember that moment because I was about to say, is the sound out?
Yeah.
I remember that moment.
It's awkward like a mistake, but it's like the biggest criticism of these NFL booths are it's wall-to-wall talking. Yeah. And so Lewis said on the Zoom, he's like, listen, I could make up something and fill the time, but I'm manufacturing something. I don't have anything great there. It was kind of nice. It was kind of natural. It was kind of like you were at the game, And so I think we have to get over how it feels or sounds like a mistake and the awkwardness. And you know what? That's pretty cool. There's nothing to say. You saw everything there. It was a 3-yard run in a cloud of dust. And let's get in the third down,
Right. No, I like that a lot. You guys have Seattle, New Orleans this coming Monday, and you will be in Seattle for the Kraken's first home game. So now we go to your hockey. So you have not done play-by-play for an NHL game since 2004?
That sounds correct. That probably
NHL
conference final of 2004, some 17 years, right? The World Cup doesn't count, right?
No, NHL. So will you be a little rusty on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned. I've never done a game with Ray Ferraro. I've known Ray forever. I love the guy. He's an unbelievable analyst. But we didn't have any preseason games to practice. Jeff Dufine will produce. I'm not sure. I think I did a baseball game with Jeff many years ago. And Dougie Holmes was the number 1 director way back when we had the package. He still might be the best director in NHL television history. But we'll be good. Listen, this would be a lot trickier if it was just another game. But to me, this is more about the city of Seattle, the state of Washington, the brand new building in the first ever event. Actually, the first ever event is a Coldplay concert, I think, on Friday night. Like, they didn't even play a preseason game there. The Kraken have not been on their home ice and won't be until the morning skate day of their first ever game. So I think it's more about the event on this Saturday night, more than who's on the checking line or the third line of the Kraken. Right. So it'll be nuts. I think it's our friends at Vivid Seats said it's the most expensive NHL regular season ticket since like 2010. So people are really excited. And look, I got lucky. It just worked out. We happen to be in Seattle for the Seahawks anyway. So we'll take advantage of the schedule, and I'm excited about it.
So you're going to be doing studio mainly, I guess, and then you'll be doing select games. And when the NFL's over, is that when you maybe go into doing more games? What's your schedule like?
3 or 4 dates in the first half of the NHL season. I've already done 2 of them. We'll do the day after Thanksgiving on ABC. That's a big day. But yeah, until the NFL season comes to an end, I think probably post Super Bowl. And then I'm looking forward to a pretty full schedule. I think we have ABC every weekend, maybe a play-by-play game during the week. And then hopefully some, first and second round playoff games. But the place is jacked up, man. They're juiced up about having hockey back.
Do you enjoy that schedule where on a Monday you're doing the NFL, on a Saturday you're doing an NHL play-by-play, and then on a Wednesday you're doing the studio? Do you like wearing all those hats, or would you prefer it?
It sounds better, right? Like it's really cool, but then to properly prepare for and execute, and my 3 young kids at home, and we're away on the road a lot for Monday night. So that's the tricky balance. And that's why I'm glad that the bulk of my NHL work will come after the NFL season. Listen, I want to give Monday night my full attention. It deserves it. It warrants it.
Right. I'm not a big NHL guy, and I don't say that to disparage the league at all. It's just I don't know how people watch every sport. It, just hard to do. And that's one that just fell off for me. But the reaction from the NHL fans when it was announced that ESPN was getting the NHL back was real. And a lot of it was around the theme song, and you specifically. You have the history of all those 5 overtime games, 4 overtime games. A lot of it was, there was obviously, people are happy it's back on ESPN. It doesn't matter, no disrespect to NBC or whatever. If you're on ESPN, no matter what you are, you're going to get more eyeballs. It's just a fact of life. Yeah. And a lot of it was geared towards you specifically. What did that feel like for you?
It felt great. I do feel like, we always enjoy what we grew up watching, right? And, it was that way for me too. And I could go through the list of great announcers growing up in New York and listening to Marv and, and Bob Murphy and Ralph Kiner and Lindsey Nelson on the Mets and all that kind of stuff. And so I think for a generation, ESPN was the voice of hockey, and people did love the music. The music thing is so funny, right? Like that was such a central focus of it. And the company gets to save some bucks. We didn't have to come up with a new theme song, just roll out the old one. And but people, Jimmy, I remember the day we lost it. I mean, there were tears. There were tears in Bristol. Yeah. It was really emotional. And now to be back on the other side and welcome it back. But yes, the players are really happy. The league is really happy. And it's a great marriage, right? It's great. The sport is really fast. It's different from what we had it the last time, but it's really fast. Skill level off the charts. And you know what? It's you talk about eyeballs and stuff. There's just so many different ways you can do a hockey broadcast. There really is, right? So the big difference to me is the intermissions and the pre and the post and the promotion. That's how we can make a difference. I mean, how many different ways can you actually broadcast the hockey game? 3 or 4, but you can do a lot of other things around the game, and the promotion is a big piece, and we are 24/7, and I think that's where hockey wins by coming back to ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, you say that, it makes me think of the NBA on TNT. I mean, regular season NBA, regular season NHL are not things you have to be in front of the TV to watch or in front of ESPN Plus. I know there's a lot of streaming now and this and that. I mean, regular season NHL, regular season NBA, MLB to an extent as well, but that feels different. But those two sports, I mean, like you said, you could do those intermissions. You could do a lot of different things. You have the time, you have the leeway. They're perfect for sort of experimenting.
But Jimmy, the TNT thing, that's like what is that? A 5-hour window on Thursday nights? Yeah. For the doubleheader, right? And I love Ernie.
They go on to like 2 a.m. Eastern time
get that
too.
Right, but I'm saying, but that's it. Yeah. And then you don't see him again,
Right.
We're still going. Like, we finish Monday night. Here comes Sports Center. Let's do 3 hits. Get up in the morning. Like, so that's where we can really help the NHL or really any property that we have.
And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and ask you like hardcore hockey questions, but I know the media game a little bit. And, ESPN seems pretty stacked, obviously, with you, McDonough. If you want like good, Emily Kaplan's a former SI person. Yeah. Greg Wyshynski's been like a legendary NHL guy. Yeah. So, hockey fans are in good hands, with ESPN. So now, like I said, I can't sit here and ask you about like, how will the Rangers do or who's the Rangers goalie. But
good. I'm glad you can't. Yeah, I don't want to.
But I'm going to ask you one NHL question because this fascinates me because it really has nothing to do with hockey, but maybe Evander Kane.
Yeah.
This guy, he's got some wild, crazy divorce story. Then he's faking COVID cards. He's gambling on his own team. I guess that wasn't true. Now I don't want to. I hate to do if this wasn't hockey game because I don't want to be a fan. But if that's an NFL player and an MLB, like he's on the front page of every, like, how is he be able to get away with all this stuff? Is he that good that teams keep him?
So he is a really good player. He's really talented, and he brings all aspects to the game. He's a rare mix, that sort of power forward, can score, can hit, can fight, can do a lot of things. And he's run through a lot of franchises now and he's made a lot of money. So that tells you. But we've seen that in the NFL too. If you can play almost regardless of transgressions off the field.
Right. But his transgressions seem a little unique in terms of betting on his team and then faking the COVID vaccine card. That's all. I know the gambling thing, I guess.
I don't know what's alleged and what's not.
Right. Alleged. Yes.
Proven in the court.
Yeah.
But yes, it would be front page news every place else. And look, the NHL just doesn't get that kind of attention. Yeah. But this was a pretty serious slap on the wrist, I would say. The
funny thing is that on this podcast last week, I went on this whole thing about like the NHL deserves more credit and the NHL should be getting more attention across the web because right before the season started, they announced that they only had 4 players who were not vaccinated in the whole league. But now we find out he's got a fake card. Right. So who knows what the number is?
My guess is there are some fake cards in all sports. That would be my guess. These guys have the means, right? Hey, buddy, grab me a card from someplace. Here we go. They
have the means. Exactly. That's the truth. I wanted to ask you about a couple of offbeat fun things here. Yeah. I did a little, I tried to research. I Googled you. Do you know what the first question is that comes up when you Google Steve Levy?
Is it about the overtime games?
No.
5 overtimes? Bulging disc?
Nope.
Okay.
Is Steve Levy related to Marv Levy?
Yeah. No.
That's so bizarre. Like that would be the most searched question about you.
Right. I wish I was, because he was obviously a genius, still a genius. I used to get that a lot. People, when people see you in public, they get a little nervous, like they're not ready. They're not expecting to see you. So I would get, hey, Marv Levy, or hey, Marv Albert, right? Right. There's a weird, from Marv and Levy and all that
Since
stuff.
you mentioned the bulging disc, when you do see fans, do you get more bulging disc, bulging dick, or do you get more about the overtimes?
Bulging.
Oh, really? Even more than the other?
Jimmy, this is like 24 years old already, and I would say still once a month, I have somebody come up to, you're the bulging disc guy. And it's a tricky one. Like people in the media are still making the mistake. And every time somebody else falls for it, they bring me up again. So honestly, it's worked out for me, Jimmy. I thought I was going to get fired the next day. Norby, who's still my boss, he sent me a voicemail the next morning, said, hey, that was great TV. Keep up the good work. And it's kind of worked out for me. You have to be known for something, and I think that's kind of my legacy. I'd like to be known as a great broadcaster, but the bulging thing has worked out for me. It's funny.
Well, I mean, it happened at like the peak of SportsCenter mania, when everyone watched SportsCenter back before the internet and you got your highlights from sports. So the timing of it for you was probably.
Yeah, and I was sitting next to Keith, okay, and Dan Dan had something going on with his kid that night, and I was already really nervous. And that was right after Monday Night Football. We had a massive uptick from the audience. The game ends. We start SportsCenter. And people still joke about it. I mean, every day it's on the internet someplace.
How many years did you do SportsCenter?
I mean, I've done it every year. I'm in my 29th year. I've done SportsCenter for 29 years. Yeah. I did the LA show before there was LA. We did it in Bristol at 2 a.m.
Right. So take out bulging disc.
Yeah.
Give me your favorite SportsCenter moment.
So, listen, I've been on the air for a lot of great things. The Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire summer, they did the 30 for 30 on it.
Yeah.
That was an incredible summer to be on SportsCenter. That was sort of people say it saved baseball. Maybe that's too strong, but definitely a resurgence because we went live to every at-bat. It was amazing, right? But the anticipation. And you couldn't get those games at full national everywhere. So people were really glued. You'd have to stay because you never knew, especially when they were going head to head. And so that was incredible. I was I was on the air for the Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, the biting of the ear. That was one of those incredible Sports Center moments. But, you know, I've been really blessed. I've always said I'm the luckiest guy in our business. I've had this great seat for so long. And listen, I work hard. I try really hard. But I do believe there's a luck piece to this. And I've just gotten a lot of breaks along the way. And so, but that Sports Center seat has always been home. And I look to keep a piece of that with me always. It's
so weird because I don't know. In my head, I don't think of you as being there so long as you like the fact that you've been at ESPN since '93 is now. Listen, I remember this is how old I am. I remember you being at WFAN.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I would listen when I was in, high school, Mike. Did you do updates at FAN? Did you do shows? What did you do at FAN?
So the FAN piece is a really cool story. So I did updates for Mike and the Dog. I wasn't the main update guy, but I did a lot of them. The Mink Man was for most of it.
Now, when you were doing the updates for Mike and the Mad Dog, were they getting along or were they fighting?
No, they were good. That was in the good stage. And actually it was. I was just starting out in TV. I was doing some MSG stuff, sports desk, intermissions. I was the second or third guy there. And Mike Francesa, Russo's a great guy, obviously, right? But, Mike's gotten a tough knock from a lot of people. He was always really good to me, and that's sort of how I judge people. And he and Chris together were always proponents of me on the television side. And I think it really helped me, especially in New York, to go from MSG to Channel 2 and CBS and all that. But I did the NFL in action on Sundays from 1 to 7. That was the first of its kind, Jimmy, where having a stringer in every NFL city. That was the brainchild of our producer, Len Weiner, by the way, back in the day. So that was cool. But the really good nugget is I did sports on Imus in the morning for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And people don't remember it. And I was maybe I was a year out of college, okay? And I was nervous. I was not ready. I wasn't funny. I'm still not really funny. It was the first time I started drinking coffee. But I do remember Charles McCord was so nice to me. Imus was really great to me. And, I was getting up at 4 a.m. I was living in Queens. And so it came to a quick end. We had these top line messages on the computer. I'm not sure if I've ever told this story before. And again, Don is not warm and fuzzy, right? There's nothing warm and fuzzy about Don Imus. And I got a top line message in parentheses, Imus, and it said, "You don't suck." And I think that was his way of saying, hey, you're not going to make it on our show, but we still like you. And by the way, I was replaced by Mike Breen, who went on to be, he was brilliant and funny and all those things. And Breeny had the job for a long time on Imus. Yeah. But if I wasn't awful at it, maybe I'd still in that spot.
I was going to ask you if you were filling in for Breeny, or was that basically a tryout to be on the Imus show?
It was a tryout, but Mike had not done it at all till I got booted out. Yeah. So that was, and when I say I've been lucky, Jimmy, in my career, that's about the only thing that really hasn't gone my way. And listen, I was in way over my head. I was not ready for the circus, and those guys were great. All the producers, Lou Ruffino on the board. I'm trying to think who the main producer was, but McCord was great. And Don was really good to me.
Were you bummed were you bummed that you didn't get, you did a 3-week tryout and then they said no? Did that knock you down a little, or you?
Yeah, like I said, that's probably the only thing that hadn't gone my way, and I'm still really early in my career at that point. I thought it was a missed opportunity, right? Like my parents were so proud, right? Everybody in New York listened to Imus in the morning, you know, and it was such a big deal. All my buddies got a kick out of it. And so, I was, it's like being rushed to the majors, right? I wasn't ready for the job. And again, I'm still not that funny, and they needed somebody funny. Warner was great down the road and all that stuff, and just probably wrong timing. But it was a good learning experience for me. And I cherished the time I had with Imus in the morning. It was fun.
You mentioned growing up in New York with both Long Island guys. Yeah. And I see if people are watching this on YouTube instead of listening on Apple, but we'll take it however you do it. But if you're watching on YouTube, I see a Jets Stadium picture in the background.
Yeah.
I lost my Jets fandom a long time ago. After Parcells left, that was about it for me and the Jets. How have you been able to maintain it all these years, Steve?
Yeah, it's not ideal. And, broadcasting the NFL now, I'll come clean, as Scott Van Pelt always says, we all come from someplace. You don't really get to choose that piece. And so they're really the only professional team or any sports team that I root for still. I had the chance to see the Rangers win the Stanley Cup. I was there at the Garden that night. I was there for Bill Buckner. I was there for Game 7 of the Mets and Red Sox in '86. So I've seen my teams win. I just haven't seen the Jets win. I got 2 young boys who are 9 years old. One of my twins said to me, he goes, "Dad, I'll give him one more year." From a 9-year-old.
At 9.
And because listen, we live in Patriots country, and all the Patriots do is win, right? And then the other team is the Giants. You can't find a Jets hat in Central Connecticut, and so I would, I'm lucky to have my dad still with me and in good health. I'd love to be able to take my dad and my 2 boys to the Super Bowl, the Jets in it one day, and I'm not sure we're going to get there, but I keep hoping. And yeah, I grew up with it. We went to the games at Shea Stadium. I loved it. So many fond memories, but that's who I am,
I give you credit for sticking with it and hanging a picture. I mean, that's you'd think that, you'd not want to look at that maybe too much.
Last year we're doing Zooms, right? Because we couldn't meet in person with the players, the coaches. And we had a Patriots Jets game. And we're Zoom with Bill Belichick. And right before Bill pops up on the screen, I was smart enough to take down that picture, So
it would have been great to see if he said something about it if you left it up.
Bill notices everything, right?
That's
oriented. He probably would have caught that. And then doing the broadcast, I felt like I played it straight. My friends were giving me the business. They know. So.
No, that's overrated. You're allowed to have a team. I appreciate you coming on. Obviously, Monday nights, every Monday on ESPN. And give people like a little taste of where they can get all the NHL. What nights you doing studio game? What do you got coming up?
So it's really ESPN Plus, and I don't want to sound like the commercial. The deal is so good. We have over 1,000 NHL regular season games. I don't know if it's $6 a month or $7 a month, but if you're a hockey fan, you kind of have. Besides great value, you don't really have an alternative. You got to go there and get it. And I'm really excited. This Saturday, the first ever Seattle Kraken home game will be full exclusive. So the only place to see it is on ESPN Plus. You get the bundle, Hulu. I'm not really into all that stuff. I don't really understand it all, but I do have ESPN Plus, and I would encourage people, definitely hockey fans. Listen, this is going to be a learning curve here. Diehard Bruin and Flyer fans, they're going to figure out they're not going to be able to get their team's games on a regular basis, 6 or 7, 12, whatever it is, the big market teams. So you sort of have to get it. I'm sure people are starting to wake up to it now.
I've said this before a couple of times. I stream college football games on ESPN's app every Saturday, multiple games at multiple times. I've never had a problem. I mean, I never get the buffering. I never get this isn't working. And, as a degenerate gambler, you need as many games on as you can get on a Saturday. So, you know what? Let's end it with that. Let's end it because I always ask when Joe Buck comes on, Nance, not directly mentioning the spread, but doing the Al Michaels, there's some interest here. What's your policy on that?
I really try to stay away, and that's really a fine line, right? Because I don't want to. I'm not the only dope who doesn't know what's going on, so I know what's happening, right? I mean, right. I look at it really informationally in the beginning of the week. Hey, should I expect a high-scoring game or low-scoring game, right? There's a blowout. There's a close game late. So I'm aware of it. But, he's Al Michaels. He can get away with anything. I'm just sort of, starting, getting my feet wet with the NFL. I'd like to have a good relationship with the league. I think that's important.
Right.
So I really do try to stay away. I'm aware you might be able to hear some tone in my voice, but I probably won't go there with the words. I don't think I have that kind of solid footing at this point. Check back in, 10 or 15 years. We'll see if that's changed.
Don't mention the spread. Let's just promote DraftKings and FanDuel during every game.
I get you.
That's right. The NFL. All right. I'm not. That's me saying it, not Steve. Yeah. I appreciate you coming on, and good luck the rest of the way there with the NFL and the NHL, and welcome back to the NHL. I know that's a good thing for you guys there. So enjoy.
Let's do this every day, Jimmy. Okay? No.
Every week is every week. I'm ready to go.
Thanks for having me on, man. Be well.
Anytime. Take it easy, Steve. All right, joining me now, big thrill for me. Anyone who has read my column, listens to the podcast, know that Curb is my all-time favorite show. And we've got, with the season coming up this Sunday on HBO, October 24th, Jeff Garlin. Jeff, thank you for doing this. How are you?
I'm great. Last night we had the Curb premiere over at Paramount Pictures, and it went great. I mean, better than I could have imagined. And it was really exciting to be around people, really exciting to hear people laugh at the show. That's not something I get even under normal circumstances. So it was exciting.
Well, that's great. And did you show like the first episode? Because I
showed episodes 4 and 5.
Oh, that's interesting. Out of order.
Yeah.
I told this story on the podcast last week about I was very lucky through HBO one year to go to a premiere of Curb where they showed 2 episodes and then there was an after party. And I told this long story that I'll do very briefly where at some point in the night, there was a very long line of people lined up to get pictures with Larry. And I know Larry doesn't want to do that. And I had this out-of-body experience. And for some reason, I went on the line and tried to get a picture with Larry. And it's the worst picture that's ever been taken. It's just horrific. And I have PTSD from that moment.
Oh, you're
So when
kidding.
you started off by telling me you were at a premiere, it triggered me.
Well, by the way, he does anyone who asks him for a picture, he does it reluctantly. It's not. But by the way, I'm a photographer. I have a show opening in Chicago at the Tamarkin Gallery, November 11th. My photos. I had it at the Leica Gallery right before the pandemic, and there's numerous shots of Larry. Now I'm with Larry all day. He's comfortable around me. And he's a guy who doesn't like having his picture taken. I have hundreds upon hundreds of pictures of him, and plenty of them are delightful, amazing. Yeah. But that's the position, the lucky position that I'm in to be able to do that.
Have you always been into photography? Is this a new hobby, or how did that come about?
It's not a new hobby. I started probably about 12 years ago. I've always loved photography, like looking at photography. My favorite photographer, I have 2, Jim Marshall and Alfred Eisenstadt. And I just love looking at photography. And then I thought, I'm going to start taking pictures, and then I didn't let anyone see any of my pictures, for like 7 years. I did a workshop at Leica, a black and white film workshop, and my pictures were getting applause. This was like street photography in Chinatown we did for a day, and we had them developed. And I went, oh, I do have an eye. I had a gut that I had a good eye, but I didn't know till then. And, it's like I wish with stand-up comedy that the first 3 years, no one sees you. But it's the only art form that you have to present it to an audience from the very first time you do it. And not even like a college thing where you can work it out a little bit in college. No. So with photography, I waited. And then when the Leica people saw that I had 9 was getting applauses, they said, would you like to do a show? And I said, I know that my celebrity, I'm proud of success. You can be a celebrity and not have any discernible talent. And be a celebrity. I don't even have to list names. We know so many now. Right. So, but I said, I know you'll want to use that. I go, but please only do it if you really believe in me. And now I'm repped by them. And I'm very proud of my photography.
Did that hobby help you deal with COVID? I would imagine that's a good hobby.
No, as the reverse. I didn't take one picture during COVID. Not one, because the pictures I take are of people generally.
Okay.
I mean, I do take pictures of interesting architecture, but I don't really use a wide enough lens to be an architecture photographer on any level. No, it's about people and exchanges. And you know what I don't like? Pictures of masks.
Right. I got you.
So
I
bet you during COVID, if you even take in my backyard taking pictures, I probably took during a year and a half, maybe half a dozen photos.
Wow.
Maybe of my dog,
Right. So speaking of COVID, a lot of Curb fans, myself included, and this is going to sound really sick and deranged, but we were kind of looking forward to Larry addressing COVID in Curb. And then I had heard maybe from James Andrew Miller, who knows everything about HBO, there's really only one episode, maybe the first episode, that deals with COVID, and then it's really not addressed the rest of the season. I don't want you to give stuff away, but...
Nothing to give away. The only time we mention COVID at all is the first episode.
Okay, so
it's a post-COVID world.
Right.
It's kind of like now, but we don't see masks. Here's the thing. When I heard during COVID, people were doing COVID stuff, I thought, you idiot, whoever it was. Because what's the last thing you want to see is more COVID shit in your entertainment. You want to escape. Now, I do understand the premise of Larry, and I think he addresses it in a beautiful way. The first episode, what goes down, but I know I personally have no interest. And when I began to read the outlines as he sent them to me, I was thrilled that we weren't a COVID festival.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, like you hit it. I think people want to escape from COVID for sure. Yeah. But if there's one person we'd want to sort of tackle it.
By the way, I completely agree with you. And we had some COVID discussions. But in general, I got to be honest. People always say you can't talk about AIDS. You can't talk about
anything.
Well, no, you can if you're funny. Right. Everyone's attacking Dave Chappelle. I think they should be attacking it for not being funny. And he's one of my favorite comedians. It's like, and also noble targets, So I think anything is open, but I really don't see any humor in COVID. There's nothing I look at with any experience from wiping down my groceries, which we all are kind of stupid now that we did that knowing that I must have wiped down 100 bags of groceries, which is insane because it had no difference. But it's really, and I'm going to do my own research. Really, when you hear people say that,
well, that I think right. So that was so a lot of funny and creative people on Twitter came up with all these things where they want to see, how Larry would deal with being in a room with someone who's not vaccinated, or someone on the show, maybe Leon trying to get a fake vaccine card, or what you just said, is Susie cleaning the groceries. The only way we would tolerate it if it was you four doing it, basically.
Oh, that's nice, but
or five, Leon.
I think we are very funny people, but I don't see the humor in it. And by the way, first episode, you'll see some stuff. But
okay, you mentioned the outlines, and one of the most famous things about Curb that everyone always talks about, it's not scripted word for word. You guys get outlines and then do the scenes. I'm just wondering if you could pull back the curtain even a little more on that. When you do get an outline, is it 50% of what that scene is supposed to be is in there? Is there any specific dialogue? How do you go from the outline to what we end up seeing on HBO?
The outline, it's at least 90% of what we do, and the dialogue is not in there. There'll occasionally be a single line that I or Larry or somebody says, but we don't get hung up on that. But the story is all there, and it's really just being real in the moment. And Larry and I are really proud. And what I loved last night, and we're in our, I think it's 11th season, and it brings me so much joy. And that is, we laugh. You watch Big Bang Theory, someone says something funny, the next person's saying their funny line. And Curb, it's very much, I say something funny. Odds are the take we use, he's not heard what I said, and he reacts accordingly to it. And it is fun to be a show where you laugh at what other people say. And we're very much in the moment. And after every take, we adjust what worked and what didn't work. But in general, it's Larry David writing the outlines, and we don't do So we got the second draft, the third draft. No, we're first draft show. One draft.
I'm going to ask you a specific instance, and maybe I think people would be curious about it. But there's a scene in one of the earlier seasons where Jeff admits to Larry that he had masturbated to Cheryl.
Okay,
and the line that kept coming up was Larry saying, like, I don't want her on your, you say she's on my bench. And Larry keeps saying, I don't want her on your bench. Get her off your bench. So in that scene, like, is it in the outline to say use this phrase on your bench, or that all comes up naturally in the scene?
That all came up naturally in the scene. But it's funny that you mention that specific scene, because that's one of the, I'd say, half dozen scenes that we reshot, because the first time we did it, I was a lot less subtle. Not subtle. I wasn't like graphic, but I came right out and said, hey, man, I jacked off to your wife last night.
Right.
And the way we did it was too abrasive for Larry. And so we reshot it and had the subtleties of the bench, who was there. And it was much better. You know, he recognized that, because, you know, a lot of times when people want to copy what Curb is and they try improvising, it's more about being shocking and being vulgar. It's not about Larry David writing the funniest stuff you've ever heard.
Yeah. Well, I've always wondered, you know, the question that comes up all the time is, you know, what do you like better, Curb or Seinfeld? Since Larry had his hand in both. And I think they're so hard to compare, since one was on network TV and one was on HBO. I have a funny
story for you with that. I have a funny story. I once told him that Seinfeld was my favorite show, and he got mad at me. Not Curb. You're on Curb. You're part of Curb. He really did get angry at me. This was years ago, maybe around season 3. I said that. But how can your favorite show be a show that you produce and you act on? It makes no sense. I have to pick another show. I should have told him that Sergeant Bilko was my favorite show, because I do love that show. Or Mary Tyler Moore. But I love Seinfeld.
But could Curb have worked anywhere other than HBO?
No, it would have had to. And by the way, considering when it came out, no, HBO was the only place, and it's been the place. You know, he did a bit last night when he introduced the episodes, how HBO has been a creative heaven. And then he says, probably when he dies and he goes to heaven, they'll tell him there'll be no creativity. He already had it at HBO.
Yeah.
No, HBO has been, I can't say enough about how supportive from the get-go. The get-go. We don't, you know, look, when I do the Goldbergs, every table read, we're in season, I don't know, 8 or so, or 9 maybe. Even after the show got the top ratings, leads off the night, there's executives there. They have notes. We don't get notes. We're left alone.
It's so funny you say that, because that was one of my, you know, I've always wanted to interview Larry, and in my head, I have all the questions I want to ask him. And the first, you know,
I'll give you an advance. Hey, he's great. You'll like it.
One of the things they always hear about Seinfeld are the famous stories of NBC giving the notes. And I've always wondered with Curb.
My favorite one, by the way, was when they decided there was going to be a blackout night, that all the shows were going to have
Friends,
a blackout. And he refused. He is so fucking funny. I love him. So you know what he's taught me? He's taught me that if you're confident in what you do, that you might as well wear a shirt that says, go ahead, fire me. Go ahead. Have fun. Have fun with whoever replaces me. Have fun what you replace with. It's not being an asshole, because, by the way, I can tell you that Larry and I both, we know the executives at HBO. If they had something to say, we would stop and listen. Doesn't that mean you have to do it?
Right.
But we would stop it because we have so much respect for them.
Right.
But there's a lot of people on a lot of shows, a lot of executives, where you go, if you could do what I do, you do it. You can't. You're not offering me anything. So you sort of feel the ego of the executive. And if the ego's in check, I know I personally would want to hear everything somebody says.
Right.
And if it's just about proving that you can give a note, which I've watched that even with the shows that I'm not in charge with other people, and I just go, unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean those old famous stories. They wanted Jerry and Elaine to be a couple and all that. But I've always wondered, because I know Larry is very happy at HBO, but I've always wondered if they ever once interfered or gave a note or tried to stick their 2 cents
one
in.
note at the beginning of the season, before the show started. They wanted me to. Cheryl and I in the pilot did not get along.
Right.
And Larry felt that was a bad thing for the series, that we should get along. There you go. And so they said, okay. And we didn't do it. That was the only thing.
I have to ask about Susie. I'm going to tell a quick story to set this up.
Sure.
Back in 2011, 10 years ago, I saw you do stand-up at Caroline's. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. And what blew me away is it was like, I thought you did maybe 15 to 20% of scripted stuff, and everything else was you riffing with the audience, and you were taking questions. And I had a couple of drinks, so for some reason I decided to raise my hand and ask a question, which another regret I have to this day. And I said something about, I asked you, when Susie Essman as Susie Green goes crazy in a scene, if you've ever once been sort of taken aback or scared, and you looked at me, you deadpanned and you just said, no, it's a fucking TV show. And the place erupted, and it was great. So I'm going to rephrase this question.
Okay.
When Susie is yelling at Larry and you're in the scene, I think of my top 3 favorite scene is the house tour, when he says he doesn't need the tour and shows him a freak of fucking nature and get out. I'm over.
Yeah.
Is it hard? How hard is it for you to not break and laugh when you're doing those scenes?
Really easy. I don't have a problem with it. There's one person on our show who breaks all the time. Larry. Larry is the breaker. Susie's not the breaker. By the way, that doesn't mean we don't smile or laugh, or especially once he starts, like he starts the train. Always. None of us. I've only laughed once on my own. And that was when Larry dropped his pants and he was wearing ladies' underwear. I already had what that might be, but you can't be prepared for Larry David and little lady, red ladies' underwear. But no, none of us break. JB, Cheryl, Susie, no breaking except by Larry. And Larry breaks a lot.
Interesting.
If he finds something funny, it takes him, he has to get focused. Sometimes I see him doing a scene with me. He's looking up at my head because he can't look at my face.
Because when I watch the show, I'm like, how, being that it's improvised, so if it's a scene where, Susie's yelling at Larry and you're maybe off to the side, I don't know how I would keep it together, because you don't know what's coming, because it's all coming off the top of the head.
I'm not watching it as a viewer. I'm watching it as a participant.
Right.
I'm also watching it doing my job.
Yeah.
And so, I enjoyed, or I'll wait till after a take and then laugh and then tell Susie how great she was.
So I mentioned seeing you at Caroline's. Do you still like doing stand-up? Is it something you enjoy?
Not only do I like doing stand-up, I love doing stand-up. And I've been doing stand-up for 39 years. And I have not, since the pandemic started, and this is over maybe the last 2 months, I've done stand-up maybe 4 times. Okay. And then prior to that, I didn't ever miss shows. I would do shows all the time. I'm about to go on tour. And if people listening, watching, want to go, they can go to jeffgarlin.com. They're all there. I'm playing for free a bunch of comedy clubs all across the country because of the pandemic. The clubs lost out, and all they have to do is pay my opening act that I'm bringing, because those people also suffered. So everyone can get paid. I worked on Curb and I worked on the Goldbergs. I'm doing fine. So I want to, and I need to get it back up on stage. So I am doing a tour starting Thanksgiving-ish through May, all around the country.
So you'll be in New York again?
I'm the closest I'll be to the city is Rochester.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
will come back to the city. I will play Caroline's again. I love Caroline's. I have a long history. I consider that like a home club. It's home to me. I'll be in New York always. I'll play the Cellar. I love. I mean, New York. If I didn't live here, I'd love to even live in New York again.
And do you still do that when you do a show? Take questions from the audience, or is that you do that?
20% of my show is scripted. 20%. Yeah. So I improvise. I play a different song every night when I walk up on stage. I'll talk about the song, which gets me in my mind moving. And I take questions. That came from, I was playing San Francisco years ago, and the writer said, "Are you going to take questions?" I said, "Why would I take questions?" They go, "Oh, people love that." And people do love it. And what's great for me is it only gives me more material, more stuff to work from. It's really fun. Yeah, I'm very loose. But I am now writing for the first time since I've been a good comedian. I am now writing an actual act. There'll be tons of improv, but I'm writing an act, and I'm using this tour to write the act, to come up with the material, because I'm doing my first European tour, which we just announced Monday. What was yesterday? Monday or Tuesday? Monday we announced it. Yeah. So that's also on my website where I'm going to be in Europe. So the European shows, I'm actually going to do two things: a lot of material, and I've been playing guitar for years, just like photography never shown anybody. I'm going to do Boogie Chillin' by John Lee Hooker at the end of the show. I'm not going to do parodies. There's just going to be a guitar and a stool and an amp to the right of the stage. I will say goodnight. So the audience is going to be confused. Why is that there? Because I will not reference it. And I've done that many times before with things. I used to put a saxophone out on stage and never touch it. And then I'll go off stage. I'll count to 10. Maybe half the audience will be gone. I'll come back out. I'll sit down and I'll do Boogie Chillin' straight, put the guitar down, leave. So those two things, material and me playing guitar. Because I have a show on Gibson TV called Jeff and Jimmy's House of Guitars, Jimmy Vivino, who used to be the head of the orchestra for Conan.
Right. That sounds, I like that.
I'm plugging lots of things. By the way, I am a guy who doesn't plug. Oh, a big thing I want to plug with you is I made a deal with iHeartRadio, and this is for you, Jimmy, for you. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm doing a podcast of the history of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to rewatch each episode, and I'm going to have either a guest from that episode, Larry's going to be on, or a crew member, or Jimmy, I'd love to have you on one of the episodes.
It would be a thrill. It would be a thrill.
Like super fans, people who love the show.
Yeah.
Because I've got over 100 episodes to go through, so I'm not going to always have JB, or Susie.
Right.
They'll be on plenty of times. But yeah, that should be coming out next month. I haven't recorded.
Oh wow, that's soon. Nice.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. I will. I will be a listener for sure. I love those. I forgot
what it's going to be called. Something with Curb in the title.
Right.
Yeah.
That's going to be great. I'm looking forward. I rewatched the whole series again when the pandemic first started, and
you did. You watched it from all seasons?
From the beginning. Yeah.
What was your favorite season? I have mine.
Either 2 or 3. I love the early. Here's what I always feel like. I feel like 2 and 3 more than any other season are really just about day-to-day minutia, which is what the stop and chat, the chat and cut.
That's my favorite stuff. But my favorite season is actually the Spite Store season, because the premise of a spite store is the most universal thing I think Larry David has ever come up with. Everybody's dealt with some business that has been bad to them and said, I wish I could put you out of business. Only Larry David sees an empty shop next door and says, I'm going to build the same type coffee shop, but better.
Right.
And I thought that was brilliant, truly brilliant, the simplicity of that. But and by the way, my sensibility is more the earlier episodes, because I agree with you. Later on, and by the way, things just organically evolve, grow, become, and that's what happened with the show. It became what it is today. But I love the simplicity of 2 and 3. Yeah, I really do.
And yes, that's the word, the simplicity. And for me, it's when there's something on the show that I can relate to in my real life that, like, you mentioned the spite season. I mean, I can't, anytime I'm in any restaurant now at all and the table's wobbly, I think of Larry, because that was a big thing every time. But
no, that was a gem of a season. I thought, to me, that's my favorite episode is the one with Wandering Bear, where Cheryl's vagina, she's having issues, and Larry and I are obsessed with Girls Gone Wild.
Right.
Because that's all self-contained, and it makes me very happy. I like the self-contained episodes too, the ones that don't go along with the storyline. Yeah,
there's so many scenes I can pick out. Larry not wanting to give Halloween candy because the girls weren't dressed up in costumes. I mean, just phenomenal. Fighting, if he gets in a fight with Rosie O'Donnell about who's going to leave the tip. I mean, this is all the stuff that those are the things I always sort of like the most. And then of course, obviously Larry and Sue. Oh, and you know what I thought? I don't think Curb gets enough credit for this. The Seinfeld reunion that was done on Curb is beyond brilliant. Beyond brilliant. The way they did it.
I agree with you, because you know why? I was barely in that season. And I was on set as a producer, and I loved that season. Yet I was in it. I'd say I had the least amount of business that season by far, which makes sense. You've got 4 other people to do stuff, and it's a big storyline. I was not offended by that. And I love that season, because I would sit in a chair watching certain things, like when they were reshooting the show, and Larry Walker, you're sitting exactly where I sat when we did the show. I mean, how exciting is that to know that, and that was just, you couldn't have done a better, reunion.
When Leon sees Newman for the first time and he goes, who's this fat bastard? And Larry's like, you've never seen Seinfeld? It's great. So great. You got a couple of minutes here and we haven't even hit on sports. And I know you're a huge sports fan. You're wearing your cut. One last thing about Curb. One last thing about Curb, and then we'll get to sports. Yeah. Who came up with the Harvey Weinstein deal? Because I think after the whole thing with
that was an unfortunate thing for me, but a fortunate thing for the show. I did not come up with it. Jeff Schaefer, our producer director, and Larry both asked me if I'd mind doing that. And I of course, I said, yeah, let's do it. The unfortunate part was people rarely, if ever, but people on a daily basis were saying, hey, Harvey, and they thought it was funny. Now, mind you, that man, I did a movie called I Want Someone to Eat Cheese with which the way they did the DVD release, IFC did the theatrical release. They did the DVD release. So I dealt with him some. I never disliked a person more immediately. Yes, I did. Actually, someone else who I met on Conan's show, who was the other guest, his name was Donald Trump. So Donald Trump and Harvey Weinstein are the two people where I instantly, just something about them just made me feel. And then as I got to know Harvey Weinstein a little bit, believe me, when people say everybody knew, no, everybody did not know. That's a fact. Because if I knew, I would have put up a Twitter site and every day put Harvey Weinstein's a rapist. Harvey Weinstein's a rapist. I don't. And so when people would do that and think they're being funny, walk up to me and say that, I go, well, how is that funny? It's funny on the show.
Right.
In real life, I don't want to hear that.
Right.
He's a rapist.
Right.
He's
I
a
think
criminal.
what made it, I know for me, what made it surreal on the show is that I had never made the connection. And then when they did
by
it.
the way, no one ever did previously, but it made sense. It worked.
Right.
I looked enough that it made sense. And by the way, on the show, I thought it was very funny, but I didn't need people coming up to me and saying, hey, Harvey. And by the way, only stupid people did that.
Yeah.
So I saw the people that were, you know.
Well, that's like, to me, it was like, oh my God, the show's been on for so long and they finally came up with like Jeff looks like Harvey Weinstein, like the genius.
I have never had to do this once ever in an interview. Excuse me. My lawn guy is doing the stuff.
This happened to me a couple of weeks ago. Don't worry about it.
Can you tell Saul to turn off the thing for a couple minutes?
This is Jeff telling the landscaper to be quiet. That's a Curb episode. See, there's a Curb episode right there. Like Larry being on a podcast and he gets interrupted. Like everything is a Curb episode. That's what the Curb fans. That's in my Curb fan brain.
Okay.
Everything's a. So let's talk about sports
that way. I forget I'm even on Curb. You know.
I got. Let me ask you this question before we get this one. I went to Wikipedia to do a little research. And the first line of your Wikipedia page says, Jeff Garlin, who is best known for his role on the Goldbergs. Would you say that's accurate?
No. And by the way, I'm going to tell all your listeners, write whatever you want on Wikipedia. What Jon Stewart told everyone once we were on the show to say that I was killed by a mountain goat. It popped up. Wikipedia is done by people who decide. So obviously a Goldberg super fan saw the page and went, no. And so it's Wikipedia is good enough to get an idea, but don't go by Wikipedia. Yeah. And I encourage people, please go on my Wikipedia page and write anything you want.
Best known for the Goldbergs. I was like, wait.
And by the way, if you ask me if I ever look at my Wikipedia page, I would say once every 3 years. And I don't know.
Just to see what's going on. Just to see what's going on. Yeah.
I don't even know. By the way, I don't even know if it's that. I don't know if someone tells me something's there or whatever.
Right. So you got the Cub hat on. I see the Cubs blanket in the background. Big Chicago sports fan. I assume the Bears are your football team.
Bears. I live in LA. I have season tickets.
What did you make of Aaron Rodgers saying he owns you?
He owns us. I'm sorry to yell.
Yell.
Anyone who is offended by that is off their rocker. Aaron Rodgers, more than any other player in my lifetime, dominates my favorite team. He is stating fact. And the idea that a woman gave him the bird with 2 fingers and he went, I own you. That makes me love Aaron Rodgers. And by the way, I hate the Vikings. I don't hate the Packers. I have too much respect for the Packers. Now, do I envy the Packers? Yes. Do I want to beat them? Yes. But I respect them. I do not. I cannot stand the Vikings and their non-inoculated quarterback. I've always hated the Vikings.
Now, things are looking up for the Bears because you have Justin Fields. But what do you think about the head coach?
He's
head coach.
Can I tell you something?
Yes.
I learned everything I needed to know about the modern Bears when the Buffalo came in preseason and Trubisky tore apart the Bears. And I thought to myself, you know what? And I always felt this about Trubisky, much better quarterback than we ever gave him credit for. And our coach, stinkeroo. Our GM, I don't hate as much because you know what? He's made a lot of other really good moves. And getting our quarterback now, I'm okay with giving the GM more time. The coach, I don't get it. And how do you not give credit to your offensive coordinator when he starts calling the plays? I'm confused by him. And by the way, everything you need to know about him is right there when you look at him. He's a bald man wearing a visor.
Larry's not going to like that.
I've got hair. I ain't wearing no visor. He's a bald man. He's like, you know what? I kind of love skin cancer. Bring it on.
Larry, I don't think Larry's going to like making fun of the bald guy.
I'm not making fun of the bald guy. Would Larry David wear a visor? No, he would not. I've seen Larry David in a golf hat. No. Bald man visor. He's off his rocker. Not a fan. And I just, it's very frustrating.
And
I love Coach Ross. I mean, I'm the manager of the Cubs. I'm good with that.
Yeah. All right. So you have season tickets to what? The Rams?
No, Bears.
Oh, you have season tickets. Oh, you live in LA and you have season tickets. So do you go to every home game? You go to every home game?
This year, I can't go to any due to my schedule and due to the pandemic and all this.
Right.
But I give them to my brother. I give them to my friends. I've got 50-yard line seats on the visiting side that are so like maybe 10 rows up. I love it. And I love my teams. The only LA team that I still love the Bulls, but I am all in on the Clippers and have been for a number of years now. I have season tickets to the Clippers. I'll be there on Saturday night when we play Memphis. I'll be there on Monday night. I'm captain of the game on Monday night.
Oh, there you go.
You know who by the way, it's really sad, and I'm sure you have to wrap it up now, but it's really sad. My favorite player on the Clippers is not a player. I love Steve Ballmer so much that I will follow him anywhere. The richest owner in sports is the most caring owner in sports. He loves his team. He does what's best. And by the way, I've become friendly with him. His passion, it's like if only all owners really cared. I'm sure he cares about the business end of things, but he is passionate about the sport. He is passionate about his team. That's what you want in your owner.
Right.
These
Absolutely.
poor soccer teams in London that are owned by American assholes. I feel bad for them. It's not right. It's not right.
Yeah. Well, he is one of the great characters in sports, there's no doubt. And
one of the character, but also a really good man. And his son, one of his sons does stand up, and he's open.
Oh, really?
For him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I didn't know that. And I was going to say, you're one of the great characters in television history on the greatest show of all time.
Whenever I hear anything like that, I am honored. It's because I knew I wanted to be a comedian at 8 years old. So I'm living what I've always wanted. I'm one of the lucky people that has always known. And even before 8, only at 8, I saw Jimmy Durante with my parents perform. And on the way home, I asked them if that was a job. And they said, yes. I said, that's the job that I want. Prior to that, I was the funniest kid in school, but I didn't know it was a job.
Well, I'm glad it worked out for you, because the entertainment I've gotten from Curb is... I can't comprehend it. So I thank you for coming on. And the
Jimmy,
new season.
Like I said, I love your column. I dig it.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
And I don't want you getting in trouble for this. And I really,
okay. Yeah.
I know you're an irreverent guy. I read your stuff.
Thank you.
I keep on getting things to subscribe again to Sports Illustrated.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
Subscribe.
Is the writing good? I mean, I'm sure it's not Frank DeFord years, but are there some
absolutely
yourself, some excellent writing?
Absolutely. We have a daily cover every single day. That's a great in-depth story. There's still great coverage across the board for sports. You should absolutely subscribe.
And the people who run it care about it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Done. I'm subscribing today, because that also goes into your pocket, helps pay you. They'd say I don't want you ever getting laid off.
If I could sell you a subscription, that would help me for sure. So thank you. You
know who my favorite writer is? Joe Posnanski. Joe Posnanski.
Yeah, he used to be a Sports Illustrated writer. Yeah,
I know. Sure. That's where I first saw him.
Subscribe and check out our daily cover every day. You'll enjoy it. I will,
and I'll enjoy your column.
Thank you.
So,
Curb this Sunday, October 24th, the new season. It's like a gift from the heavens. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Thank you. An honor to be here.
Thank you. Take care. All right. It's time for our weekly Train of Thought segment. That means I bring in my buddy Sal Licata from WFAN Radio in New York, SNY TV in New York. And he was just asking me before we started rolling if I have watched Squid Games yet. I have not. Everyone keeps telling me I've got to watch it. Your review?
Well, I mean, it's hard to give a review. Obviously, I'm not going to give any spoilers because it's still probably too soon. But I will just say I enjoyed it. I was addicted to it. My wife and I really got into it. It was, though, a little too gruesome, gory, dark for my full enjoyment. However, even with that, it was like, oh my God, like you can't believe what you're watching. I'll put it this way. The best way I think you could sum it up, it was the one show, and you know how much hype this has gotten. It actually delivered, where usually you'd be disappointed or you'd say, it wasn't that. Right. This is worth all the hype that it's getting.
I have to squeeze it in, but it's hard, which leads me to one topic I wanted to discuss with you today. I don't have a ton of topics, but I haven't been able to get Squid Games in because there's games on all the time right now. I think this is by far and away the best time of the sports year. You've got ALCS, NLCS every night. The NBA is back. If you're in the NHL, that's back. You have your football on, Thursday, Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I think this is by far the best time of the year to be a sports fan. Some sports fans say March with March Madness. To me, it's not even close. Where do you stand on it?
Yeah, and it's the worst time of the year to be married. I mean, because there are sports going on. There are sports going.
You got in trouble too. You got in trouble.
Because I'm thinking of you. You're sitting there single. You're betting the boards left and right. You look at the slate. Oh, we got a 5:00 baseball game, an 8:00 baseball game, football Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. And I'm thinking I got to go pumpkin picking on Saturday. But yes, it is. It's always my favorite. Now, selfishly, I'd like to have some of my teams being more relevant. But outside of that, you have the playoff baseball, which is the best. The NFL, which it doesn't matter what week or where you are in the season, that is the best. You throw in the NBA starting up, which is good for me because the Knicks are relevant. It gives us something in New York, NHL. Yeah, it's all clicking right now. It is a great time.
Right.
The fall weather, you want to be inside with the fall weather.
You get afternoon baseball games. Mm-hmm. I like it. Yeah, the weather's the issue. The weather is so nice. I hate being in the house so much. That's the only downside of all this.
Well, it's abnormally hot in New York. Last weekend or Friday, maybe it's like it was the summer. Yeah. So I do think it's going to, even today it's warm, but I do think it's going to get a little cooler, and that makes you kind of want to stay in and just sit in front of the TV for 12 hours or whatever it is on a Sunday.
The one sports story I just want to mention quickly, and then we'll probably wrap quickly because it's a long pod, and you're good for this because you do in New York TV and radio. And I know a lot of people don't care, but if you're a New Yorker, I don't understand the big hullabaloo about Aaron Boone coming back. Any Yankee fan that thinks Aaron Boone getting fired is going to make a difference this is everything that has to do with the Yankees is Cashman. Boone has nothing to do with anything. This is all Brian Cashman. The roster was not put together properly last year. Torres at shortstop. He's not a shortstop. Gary Sanchez regressed. Cashman brings in Joey Gallo, who's one of the worst players I've ever seen in my life. And people want to blame Aaron Boone. It makes no sense to me. Where do you stand on the people blaming Boone or upset that Boone is back?
I'm in agreement with you. I think, and I opened my show last night with the wah Yankee fans. Oh my God, Aaron Boone is back. I mean, the guy in his first 3 years has won 100 games, 103 games, his first 3 full years, then 92. And an awful year. This was an awful year by all accounts. They won 92 games and still made the playoffs. They make the playoffs every single year. I'm with you. He's irrelevant. Oh, and by the way, if the fans wanted them to fire Boone, who do you think they're going to hire? They're not hiring Buck Showalter. They're not going down the road of an experienced manager. They would just hire a different version of what Aaron Boone is. Exactly. So it doesn't make any sense. I'm with you. I don't get it from the spoiled brat Yankee fan.
If they got rid of Boone and hired a different manager, Brian Cashman is still going to tell them who should play, who should not play, this guy should play against righties, this guy should only get this pitcher out second time through the order. That's still all coming from the computers in the front office. The manager of the Yankees is so irrelevant.
Well, think about it this way, too. And Cashman basically admitted the mistake. Was it Boone's fault that they put Gleyber Torres at shortstop when he shouldn't have been a shortstop? Right. Is it Boone's fault that Gary Sanchez has been terrible? Is it Boone's fault that Aaron Hicks can never stay healthy? Is it Boone's fault that Garrett Cole couldn't go more than 2 innings in a wild card game? I mean,
and here's the problem. And the problem is people say, oh, well, the Cashman gets them to the playoffs every year based on the... Okay, but the Yankee mantra is World Series or nothing. So how is losing in the first and second round every year satisfactory? If that's them.
The other thing too is and I don't know if this is accurate, and I had to read the story 5 times. Their payroll, while it is high, and it was $205 million, something like that, the Yankees that was what they did better than everybody else. Now the Dodgers are, let's say, 260. So not only are the Yankees $55 million behind them, their payroll is the same as it was in 2005, which I found almost impossible to believe. Here we are 15 years later, and they haven't blown through the luxury tax threshold. So that's an issue too. They need to change it up. You're right about Cashman. I thought if anything needed to be changed, it was Cashman, because you needed a different set of eyes, just a different feel. He clearly made mistakes, misevaluating what the team was going into last year. But I do have faith that he'll be able to change it, assuming that they give him some flexibility. They could go out there and spend, get a shortstop, get a catcher, get a first baseman, maybe a center fielder as well.
All right, last thing. I just interviewed Jeff Garlin because Curb is coming back this Sunday. And he confirmed what I had heard and read, that there's only one episode. First episode, they make mention of COVID. It's not addressed the rest of the season. They don't deal with it. They're sort of doing the show in a post-COVID world. Does that bother you? Did you want to see Larry deal with the COVID minutia, the masks, the no mask, the vax, or you want the escapism and you're fine without the COVID being?
It's a great question, and I haven't really given it much thought. I will say I think it's odd to avoid it, being that in our minds this took place in the midst of it, and we're still kind of living with it. And plus, it's a layup, right? As you mentioned, Larry dealing with COVID. I'm curious more than anything else. I'm not bothered. I'm curious why they would do that, or how it's going to work if they address it once and then move on, because it is a part of. Well,
because what Jeff said is they're doing it sort of in a post-COVID world. So I guess maybe they'll say something like, I can't believe what we just dealt with, and then they'll move forward.
Right, but we're still dealing with it. We're not living in reality. We're not living in a post-COVID. Right. It happened. It's not, you can't. Well, and the argument was that this is the escapism. Put on Curb for 25 minutes, and you're escaping from COVID and everything that's gone on, and you get Larry for. I get that, and I appreciate that. Believe me, nobody wants to be dealing with this as long as we have. However, to ignore it for a show that is based in reality, you want to escape from COVID? Go watch Star Wars or a sci-fi thing. Curb Your Enthusiasm based on reality.
Yeah, I would have liked a couple of episodes maybe on it, and then you can move on. But yeah, because it would have been funny. Jeff was making the argument that COVID's not funny. It's hard to laugh at it, and I got it. But Larry is the one person I think that can get away with sort of making it funny for us. But,
well, that is true, because what are they going to do? Mask, no mask, vaccine, no vax, make fun of it, and then one way or another, you're pissing people off. So I can understand why they would avoid it, and that at least makes some sense.
Right. All right, Tal, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week, and be well.
Yep, talk to you later.
All right, thanks. All right, that wraps it up for this episode. My thanks to Steve Levy, Jeff Garlin, and Sal Licata. If you missed any recent episodes, go into the archives, check them out. John Oran from Sports Business Journal, Alan Sepinwall from Rolling Stone last week, Kyle Brandt 2 weeks ago, Stephen A. Smith 3 weeks ago, Brian Danielson on the podcast recently, as well as Jimmy Kimmel and Joe Buck. So all those in the archives, subscribe, rate, and review. All right, that wraps it up. We'll see you next week right here on the Sports Illustrated Media podcast. Stay safe and take care.